A very good evening and thank you for joining GBS News at 9. My name is Stephen George and our sign language interpreter tonight is Paul Madenge. And now, in our top story, President William Ruto has today closed his day 2 of the 4 days tour to the Mount Kenya region and has toured Meru and Kirinyaga County consecutively, urging the people of the mountain to remain united and avoid those leaders intending to divide them basing on political, cultural and ethical grounds. The president also promised to work together with the mountain to promote development in the country, as he reminded them on the journey that he has walked with them since 2002. Davis Karani reports.
Mimi nataka niwahakikishie, mimi si wazimu, na mimi si mjinga, na mimi si mlevi. Najua ni kina nani walinisaidia nikaunda hii serikali, na mimi nataka niwahakikishie tutatembea pamoja.
This was the most repeated statement made by President William Ruto in his day 2 tour to the mountain. Statements aimed to mend a relationship between him and the mountain after his former second-in-command, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, stirred the water in a move to disjoin the president from the mountain, which Ruto stated that it is impossible.
Urafiki nimetengeneza na watu wa mulima. Ni urafiki ambayo tumetengeneza kwa miaka karibu 20. Hakuna mtu atakuja kuvunja urafiki ambaye mimi nimetengeneza na watu wa mulima, na siwezi kukubali mtu yeyote kuja kati yetu na ile kazi tumefanya kwa pamoja.
The doubts that were there between the president working with the Mount Kenya region were cleared by the deputy president, Professor Kithure Kindiki, who assured the president of his full support for the good and the benefit of the entire nation.
Rais, mimi nataka nikushukuru mbele ya hao watu, hao majirani wangu. Nataka nikushukuru na nikuambia sitakuaibisha, nitakusaidia kazi, sitabishana na wewe, kwa sababu kazi yangu sio kubishana na rais. Kazi yangu ni kusaidia rais. Nisaidia rais. Nisaidia rais.
But to clear the doubts of neutralizing the mountain, which the former DP Rigathi Gachagua always stated that it has left the president, Ruto's latest foot soldier William Kabogo vowed to act and deal with the small buffalo disturbing the president's administration in the mountain.
Tuko juu ya mlima chini yetu tunafurahi, au sio namna hiyo? Tunaona Mheshimiwa Kithure Kindiki DP amepawa kazi ya cartel, si ndio? Mimi naomba Mheshimiwa Rais unipe kazi pale, kuna kabogo kidogo kanyati kadogo kamekatalia juu ya mlima. Unipe kazi nisukume hiyo shughuli ya mlima iishe. Mumenipatia ruhusa.
A man with a good tongue, sweet language and convincing words, as his political opponents call him politically, rolled down his usual tune but urged the country to remain intact and united for a better nation.
Nasema tutembee pamoja, niendelee na hii kazi, niwapangie maneno, ndio Kenya iweze kusonga mbele. Watu wa ukabila tuwaache nyuma, wachuki tuwaache nyuma, wale wa migawanyiko tuwaache nyuma.
The president will be touring Nyandarua and Murang'a counties tomorrow. Will he be ushered in like it has happened to him in Meru County, Kirinyaga County, Laikipia County and Nyeri County, attracting large crowds contrary to the expectations of his opponents? What does this mean to the public eye? Food for thought and the view for the eye. Davis Karani, GBS News, Mount Kenya region.
Is former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua still calling shots in Mrima? This is the question being asked by many as President William Ruto continues to receive a victorious reception in the Mount Kenya region. The president is walking tall, ensuring the residents of his commitment to fulfill the promises he made to them prior to the election. Moreover, the president urges the residents to ignore politicians with divisive politics. The former DP had earlier warned the locals against the rallies. Here's more on the story.
The bromance between President William Ruto and his former principal assistant Rigathi Gachagua seems to have absolutely thawed, especially after the impeachment of the former. As a result, Gachagua vowed to ring-fence the mountain from President Ruto, whom they had voted for, to a man in the 2022 general election. The mountain seems to have been so shaky for the president, and he has conspicuously been absent in the ground. This week's tour, the former DP led his allies in sounding warning bells to the locals.
sababu kila siku ni kudanganya watu na kutenga na kuahidi, si ndio? Si hata saa hii anajiandaa kutembea huko, anakuja kusema ukweli ama uongo? Si mnajua pesa imepangwa na magunia, mjitayarishe mkule, lakini msipeleke hiyo nyumbani. Pesa nyumbani imelaaniwa, mkule pale kwa market peke yake, si ndio? Sasa watu wanapewa pesa kuja kusikiza uongo, na tumesema basi kama ni kusikiza uongo ulipishe bei kali, kwa sababu uongo ni kitu baya.
How can you come and whine on a television show as a president telling us about people you have control over, people you can fire, people you can rehire, people you can summon, and you're coming to tell us about contractor? Honestly, nilimuuliza maneno ya Githunguri ya Plains Road, aliniambia huyu contractor sijui ametusumbua sana. How? 8 years. He was the deputy president for 10 years. That road was started when he was the deputy president. Now he's the president. He's still giving us stories.
And the president ostensibly made a tactical move as he addressed the locals in a press conference at his Sagana Lodge in Nyeri on Sunday.
Ama tumeatimiza yale tulikubaliana na wao. Na sasa itakuwa wananchi wenyewe watajiamulia kati ya wale na mimi ni nani anasema uongo. Toe shukrani kwenu kwa kunipatia nafasi ya kuongea na watu wa Mlima Kenya kupitia kwa mitandao yenu na kupitia kwa redio na TV zenu. Nawatakia heri, nawatakia baraka. Asanteni sana.
As he stepped down in Mrima for the second day now, the president has received a triumphant entry into the region, walking tall and ensuring the residents of his commitment to fulfill his promises to them. Remarks by local leaders allied to Rigathi Gachagua, including Nyeri Governor Kahiga Mutai, has sent shockwave to the former DP.
Leo sisi tunasema rais amefanya vizuri kutuletea nini? Maendeleo. Na tungetaka tumhakikishie asiwe akiambiwa ati asikuje Nyeri. Sisi tunataka akuje tena na tena na atuletee nini?
Si wale wakora wa siasa pia wamehamishwa? Wahame kwa mlima wasihame? Si walisema rais hawezi fika Meru? Sasa rais yako wapi? Rais ako wapi? Ati rais ako wapi? Ako hapa Meru. Maua siko Meru, siko mlimani. Huyu rais ndiye mwenye mlima, aishi kwa mlima, akae kwa mlima, asitishwe na mtu yeyote.
Question is, has the president caught Gachagua flat-footed? Only time will tell.
Hapa mlimani wiki moja mimi niko area hii kupanga mambo yenu yote ya maendeleo. Kwa hivyo mimi nimesema asante sana kwa kutukaribisha hapa na Rumoru. Mjue mimi nawapenda sana, nawatakia heri, tutafanya kazi pamoja. Mwadhani ya muradhi.
Victor Udin. GBS News at 9.
Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has launched an aggressive crackdown on Miraa cartels, accusing of exploiting farmers vowing to dismantle their networks early in the morning to safeguard livelihoods. The declaration follows President William Ruto's direct mandate to Kindiki during the rally, where he emphasized the urgency of addressing cartels charging 581 shillings, an equivalent of $4.50 per kilogram in illegal levies on exports. Kindiki pledged to leverage his security expertise as former Interior CS with a strategy to enhance surveillance at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, a hub for cartel activities. Miraa farmers have long decried cartels siphoning 10 million shillings daily through illegal charges, particularly on Somalia-bound exports. Kindiki's appointment to lead the crackdown follows Ruto's critique of former Deputy Rigathi Gachagua, perceived in action, the constructing of the issue with Kindiki's proactive stance.
Wale ambao wametengeneza cartel ya miraa, watu wa cartel ya miraa, mimi nawaambia mambo yao ni matatu. Mambo yao ni mangapi? Either wakome na cartel ya miraa, ama mambo ya pili tuwapeleke jela, ama mambo ya tatu waende ile safari.
Hii ya kupigana na cartels ya miraa, delegate to your deputy president. Na mimi rais, niko na experience kidogo sana. Siku ile ulinipatia kazi ya usalama, hapo Lamu kulikuwa na shida ya terrorist, walikuwa wanapiga watu kila siku, na mahali kwingine North Rift, na hata hapa kidogo. Nilingangana na hiyo kazi, na hata kama sikumaliza 100%, siku ile ulinipatia hiyo kazi, terrorists na bandits walijua kuna waziri kutoka Kenya wa mambo ya usalama. Kwa hivyo rais, naomba kwa heshima hii, kwa sababu wewe ndiye amiri jeshi mkuu, delegate ya cartels ya miraa, nitapita nao asubuhi na mapema.
The Kenyan government has confirmed it will not offer compensation to the over 5,000 Kenyans refugees currently living in Ethiopia who fled the country in the early 2000s due to internal ethnic conflicts. Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi announced today, stating that while the government will facilitate their return and reintegration, no financial compensation will be provided.
Prime Cabinet Secretary and Acting Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi today stated that the Kenyan government will not compensate the over 5,000 Kenyan refugees currently living in Ethiopia. These individuals who fled to Ethiopia in the early 2000s due to interconflicts and the Torbi massacre have expressed interest in returning to Kenya. Mudavadi clarified that the government's role is to facilitate their return and reintegration into Kenyan society, but no compensation will be provided.
The government only facilitates return and reintegration into the Kenyan society for any Kenyan refugee granted asylum by any country. No compensations are paid by the government for any returning Kenyan.
He also confirmed that the Kenyan and Ethiopian governments, alongside the United High Commissions for Refugees, will help repatriate the refugees, though the process will follow specific guidelines.
We must also engage and coordinate with the UNHCR, Kenya government and Ethiopia government to facilitate the return of the refugees, including on the required legal formalities, particularly documentation. This requires a formal engagement between the governments of Kenya and Ethiopia and is formalized through a tripartite agreement that will include the UNHCR.
Currently, 4,993 refugees have expressed interest in returning, but several issues such as land and housing accommodation, as well as their safety and integration, still need to be addressed before the repatriation begins. Despite the urgency expressed, Mudavadi did not provide a clear timeline for the repatriation. He attributed the delay to complexity of diplomatic negotiations, bureaucratic processes between the two governments, and the readiness of host communities to accommodate the refugees.
This option may not be immediate as it requires time in order to fulfill all the requirements. It will require a rigorous process that entails internal survey to go and see visits, identification of settlement areas, signing of voluntary repatriation forms, and other bureaucratic processes.
Additionally, the refugee settlement in Ethiopia faces challenges, including inadequate infrastructure, poor water and sanitation, further complicating aid efforts. The statement follows the launch of Shirika Plan, a government initiative aimed at promoting the socio-economic inclusion of refugees in Kenya by transforming refugee camps into integrated settlement for both refugees and local communities. Triza Tiengo, GBS News.
Embu County is gearing up for a visit by President William Ruto this Friday as part of his long week tour of development of Mount Kenya. The president is expected to inspect and commission several key projects. This visit comes 5 months after a controversial reception, but many residents are hopeful that the president's focus on development will bring progress and accelerate stalled projects in the region.
Embu County is preparing for President William Ruto's visit this Friday as part of his week-long development tour of Mount Kenya. The president will inspect key projects, including the 700 million ultra-modern market in Embu town and the Kamburu Dam water supply project in Bere South. This visit comes 5 months after a controversial reception where the president faced heckling during the installation of the new Catholic Bishop of Embu. However, many residents are eager to set politics aside and focus on the impact of the president's development agenda.
Sisi kama wanabiashara kwa wakati huu hatuko kwa mirengo, hatuko kwa mrengo wa huku, hatuko mrengo wa kule kwingine. So tunangoja president kama president of the Republic of Kenya. Tunangoja president kwa the projects that he commissioned and that he is coming to commission for Embu. Tunangoja president kama watu ambao wanatarajia maendeleo kutoka sasa mpaka 2027. Tukingoja president tukiwa kwa mrengo fulani wa kisiasa ama watu ambao maybe hawamtaki, sijui wengine tukue ni watu ambao tumepewa pesa kwa sababu ya siasa ama kwa sababu ya kupiga kelele ama kwa sababu ya kutomshangilia, basi sisi tutawachwa nyuma kimaendeleo.
Tunamkaribisha sababu tunampenda, tunajua kwamba kuna miradi mingi alianzia na tunajua kwamba akija anakuja kuitamatisha.
Tuko na hii soko ya Embu hapa town na tunatarajia rais wetu unakuja ndio tufungulie hiyo soko ndio ikamilishe. Kuna maji ya barabara mingi, kuna miradi ya mabarabara na tunajua unaweka lami karibuni. Tungetaka utumalizie hiyo miradi sababu sisi watu wa Embu ile tunataka ni maendeleo. Hatutaki makelele sana, atitue ni sisi tuko namba moja na kupika makelele, ile tunataka ni maendeleo, ile tunaona unatufanyia Embu.
Many are hopeful that the visit will help accelerate stalled projects and bring much needed progress to the region.
Amekaribishwa akuje ili aweze kutumalizia ile maendeleo tuko nayo. Tuko na maendeleo mingi sana, tuko na soko na tuko na mambo mengi.
Ile mambo alituambia na ijatimia, tunatarajia sasa itimie kwa sababu ni rais wetu na ni rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
Orange Democratic Movement Party Central Committee has today maintained its stand on being in the position and has denied allegations channeled to it by Kalonzo Musyoka and Martha Karua over influencing the interviews going on currently. The ODM Party Central Committee today stated that it has not influenced the selection panel for the IBC commissioners and instead has alluded that Kalonzo Musyoka is advantaged in the IBC panel due to the nomination of his personal advisor to the committee. ODM Party has further repeated that it is not in government and what they are implementing by partnering with the government is the NADCO report.
As we speak today, this is the top organ of ODM. ODM is not in government, and I don't know how many times we have to answer a question. ODM is not in government. ODM is a distinct, independent political party from the ruling Kenya Kwanza coalition. So when somebody makes an allegation such as that, you have to ask them first, what is the basis of that assertion? Then we can engage from there. Kenyans are fully aware that the inordinate delay in commencing this exercise was due to the failure to resolve the nomination of the Wiper representative to the selection panel. Following the support of ODM, both at the PPLC and in court, including affidavits sworn by our very own Junet Mohammed here, Wiper got its rightful slot, and as we speak, Wiper's nominee to the panel, Koki Muli, has been part of the process from the shortlisting to the ongoing candidate interviews.
The National Assembly has today granted a crucial 2-week extension to the selection panel tasked with appointing new commissioners to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, or IBC. The decision comes after the selection panel, initially mandated to complete its work by April 28, 2025, requested additional time. This extension is now seen as a vital to ensure a thorough and effective selection process for the IEBC officials. Minority Leader Junet Mohammed led the motion, emphasizing the importance of public trust in selection process. He urged Kenyans to remain confident, assuring that the panel would perform its duties diligently. Deputy Majority Leader Owen Bai has echoed these sentiments, clarifying that the extension is within legal bounds and necessary for the panel to complete its critical task effectively. With this extension, Parliament aims to provide the panel with ample time to identify and appoint the most qualified individuals to lead the electoral body. It is time for us to take a short break. Keep your feedback streaming to social media platforms at GBS TV Africa. The SMS line is 21144. We'll be back.
Anza wiki yako kwa njia sahihi kwa GBS Jumatatu.
Niko nawe hadi midai ya saa 4 asubuhi. Kwanza niseme asante kwa kuzidi kufuatilia na kutazama vipindi vyetu ambavyo huwa tunakuandalia hapa ndani ya GBS TV Jumatatu. People are now seeing the money that have been given to church as a bribe.
Jiunge nasi kila Jumatatu asubuhi kuanzia saa 1:30.
Nimesikia mwenzangu akifanya hesabu hapo ya vile ambavyo miungano zitakuwa. Ruto is going to fail whether with Raila or without Raila.
Kuna mahali anakosea akisema ati Raila na Ruto wataungana. Hakuna kuungana iko hapo, ndugu yangu, aje nikwambie ukweli.
Hadithi za kunoga.
Ukiangalia Wakenya, wananchi wa Kenya, pia hao maisha yao imedhulumiwa kwa kuongezwa kwa taxes, ziko very high taxes. So the statement by Rigathi Gachagua is just statement ya kumcheck that we can see you you can see between the lines.
Na mazungumzo yenye nguvu ya kukuletea utulivu kwa wiki yako.
Ati Raila ataingia UDA.
Hiyo ni ndoto nasema hivi mheshimiwa, ikiwa Raila
itakuwa, mimi naona itakuwa
hadi saa 4 za asubuhi kwa majadiliano ya kusisimua.
Mheshimiwa Rais William Samoei Ruto ajue ya kwamba sasa yeye ni president wa Kenya. Sio mambo ya kufanyia wana Kenya mzaha. Kupoteza biashara kwa siku moja katika CPD, nafikiria ni jambo ambalo ni rais.
Usikose, ingia kwenye GBS TV. Anza Jumatatu yako kwa kusudi.
If the government does not spend, my brother, hakuna maendeleo inaonekana, hakuna barabara zinatengenezwa, hakuna dawa kwa hospitali, my friend, economies will not grow.
Tuonane panapo majaliwa yake Mwenyezi Mungu.
GBS Jumatatu, palipo mjadala wa leo na mwelekeo wa kesho.
Water remains to be the world's most precious commodity, but is the most misused. In times of drought, saving water is the only solution to making sure you have it. Don't use the shower when water is scarce. Instead, use the basin while bathing. Repair all leaking taps and pipes. Wash your car only whenever necessary. If not, use a piece of cloth to wipe it clean. Do not use the hose pipe to water your garden. Instead, use the water you clean your vegetable with to water your flowers. Do not release wastewater into rivers. Note that your downstream is someone else's upstream. Of all the waters available on Earth, only 1% is fit for human consumption. Every drop counts.
Come on.
everywhere. GBS.
And welcome back. Former Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi has broken his silence after being fired by President William Ruto, accusing the administration of sidelining critical human rights issues. Addressing journalists at Ufangamano House in Nairobi today, Muturi claimed his dismissal stemmed from his principled stand against abductions and extrajudicial killings. Justin Muturi, who was dismissed on March 27th last month, revealed he skipped 3 cabinet meetings this year after the agenda repeatedly excluded discussions on abductions and extrajudicial killings. Muturi detailed sending 3 letters to President Ruto on January 20th, February 11th, and March 11th, demanding action. He expressed shock at Ruto's March 31st televised claim that the issue had been resolved in cabinet, countering his dismissal followed months of tensions after Muturi publicly disclosed his son's abduction in January, which he said was resolved through presidential intervention. He now vows to continue advocating for accountability.
Or incompetence, for me, is a side issue. He's trying to divert attention from this monumental issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings. But, ladies and gentlemen, I am compiling a report to address that issue, but it is not for me to defend myself on that position. I will be presenting before Kenyans a scorecard of all that I did, and let Kenyans judge for themselves. But I will not be with such side shows be distracted or be diverted from addressing this issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings. For we know, indeed, there are very, very many Kenyans, parents, relatives, who are still in agony about the loss of their loved ones through these heinous actions. Indeed, the issue I'm raising is many Kenyans, particularly those in government positions, are afraid of raising issues which ought to be addressed squarely. And we cannot claim that we have a robust constitution.
A heated inquiry into land ownership dispute between the National Police Service and the Wilson Mutumba Women's Group unfolded in Parliament today as the National Assembly's Departmental Committee on Lands grilled PS for Lands Nixon Korir and officials from the National Land Commission. The contested land allocated in Langata South Sea Estate is home to the West Park police lines and other key amenities. Allegations of fake documents, double land titles, and irregular land transfers emerged during the session, raising concerns about possible fraud in the past transactions.
The National Assembly's Departmental Committee on Lands has intensified its inquiry into the contentious land dispute between the National Police Service and the Wilson Mutumba Women's Group in Langata, Nairobi City County. The disputed parcel currently hosts the West Bank police lines and other amenities.
Are you aware that this group was actually registered in 1988? No, Honorable Chair. I have a document here, which I want to table.
In a session held today, the Principal Secretary for Lands and Physical Planning, Honorable Nixon Korir, asserted that the land in question has always been government property, refuting the women's group's claims of dispossession.
From the information we have, is that this man used to be the director of DCI, benefited from this subdivision.
In affidavit filed by the my director of land administration, Mano Ching, he has actually addressed the issue of the receipt conclusively, which was actually filed in court. The receipt that is being used by the Mutumba is actually a fake receipt. It's actually criminal. And he has actually, in his filing of affidavit, he says the plaintiff has severally referred to receipt number D216395 as the one which they paid the said stamp premium on 26 November 1990. That from our records and the confirmation from the government printer, the receipt series D216395 was issued to Nakuru District Commissioner on 27 August 1994 and not the Ministry of Lands. This is actually something that has been filed in court. So, Honorable Chair, if you want more information on this parcel, to be specific, I can be able to provide.
The Wilson Mutumba Women's Group contends that they were allocated the 26.8 hectare land in the 1980s by the former President Daniel Arap Moi and had initiated construction of 300 residential houses with assistance from an Irish organization. However, in 2005, they were forcibly evicted by the police, leading to legal battles. In December 2024, the Environment and Land Court issued orders halting any developments on the land, pending the determination of the case filed by the group.
We need to give the PS some more information. He seems like to be lacking some of the documentation. And I think through you, Chair, it's going to be furnishing with a lot of information which we have, and it seems to not to have. And I think it should also not ignore what the Honourable Member said about the registration of this organization. 1988. Right now the piece is talking about 2005. That's a very big risk.
Our position from the records first is that first the document that has been presented as a certificate of registration by the Honourable Member is a document that has presented now, and maybe that was presented by the Mutumba women yesterday or last week when they appeared before you. The question is, if they are this document, why did they use a document for 2005 for registration?
In November 2024, the government had invited investors to construct housing units for the police on the disputed land as part of the affordable housing program. This move prompted the Wilson Mutumba Women's Group to seek legal redress, resulting in the High Court blocking the construction, pending the resolution of the ownership dispute. The committee has scheduled a joint session with the Principal Secretary and National Land Commission officials on April 15th of 2025 to further deliberate on the matter. Hilary Kabila, GBS News, Nairobi.
The government has announced it will appeal a High Court ruling that struck down its directive on recurring school fees to be paid through the eCitizen platform. The decision comes after Justice Chacha Mwita ruled on Tuesday that the directive was unconstitutional, citing a lack of public participation and questioning the legality of the 50 shillings transaction fee. Basic Education Principal Secretary Julius Bitok defended the eCitizen payment system, urging it will be implemented to protect parents from exploitation and enhance transparency in school finances. The directive, initially issued in January by the then PS Belio Kipsang, aimed to centralize school fees payments through the government's online portal. However, Justice Mwita's ruling highlighted concerns over due process and imposed transaction charges. Speaking at Kwa Njega Primary School in Nairobi, where he received newly constructed classrooms from the U.S. Department of Defense, PS Bitok reiterated the government's intentions to curb financial irregularities in schools. We are taking a short break. Keep streaming into our social media platforms at GBS TV Africa. The SMS line is 21144. We'll be back.
Remove my skin and I won't cry. But you might. What am I? Are you still practicing art ukifanya your engineering? Umezimix ama umeenda tu fully on art? Sasa najua hebu kwanza tutajia because najua huwezi taja wote. Just some of the people wenye, some of the celebs wenye umeweza ku reveal your art to them.
Zikroba bibi yake. hiyo siku walifurahia mbaya. Mimi nilikuwa emotional mbaya sana. Go check that video guys. Nililia mbaya.
I was seeing kuna place ulikuwa unasema like BN walikusaidia sana in building your career. Unaweza tuambie hiyo moment venye ilikuanga?
We
how are you today? Because I am very, very happy. So we are on Kids Mind on GBS TV.
Today we're going to make ta-da! A boba tea letter set.
We are moving to singing class.
Skinamarinky dinky ding, skinamarinky doo. I love you. The tortoise and the hare. Friends, do you know about this story?
Now you're finished to make.
Enjoy yourselves, everybody.
And the question of the day is, can you survive without internet?
ngumu nasikachile ile story tu zote zikupita ni ngori. Niwaambie ukweli. Like hii ni kama kuambia mtu mwenye alikuwa amezoea kushindana nguo, mwambie toa nguo ishinde uchi. Hiyo ya tricky kwa sababu sasa like ilikuwa imekuingia kwa kichwa kabisa.
Mimi nimesomea day school na niocha. So kukuwa na simu hadi ni ile katuriru, si smartphone, ni ile katuriru.
Sasa inaweza kaka holi ya bila simu.
Kuspend most of the time kwa simu. Also you need to run skills. So nilipata na later hapa nikapo apply huko. And then I started learning skills. Digital skills.
Hadi siku mbili haiwezi. Kwa wiki naachilia hata kama ni siku mbili ama sometimes na extend to wiki mzima. Napata shiki simu yangu.
Talking about navigating the long-distance relationship.
First of all, the world is now a global village thanks to technology and the internet.
When you talk about relationships, when you talk about love, when you talk about feelings, when you talk about emotions, all these things originate from the heart. I never saw in the Bible where someone was married and then the wife was living far away from them, and then there was something that they were building.
When it comes to relationships and probably communication, that distance is not a barrier.
Yeah.
But it is in communication, in effective communication. There is something that long distance relationships lack, which is very essential for effective relationship building.
When you are cooking and the tap gets spoiled, do you try to repair it from that point, or you run to the main source and then you close it?
Everywhere, GBS.
And welcome back now to international news. United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, Nada al-Nashif, warned of an escalating human rights crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo, driven by violence from the Rwanda-backed M23 rebel group. In a recent report, she highlighted alarming levels of extrajudicial killings and executions, sexual violence and displacement, urging urgent international action to address the root causes of the conflict and hold perpetrators accountable.
United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, Nada al-Nashif,
delivered a report on the dire human rights situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, emphasizing the ongoing violation tied to the offensive by the Rwanda-supported M23 group in the eastern DRC.
Let me underline with grave concern that since the beginning of the year, the United Nations has documented 602 victims of extrajudicial and summary execution committed by all parties to the conflict in North and South Kivu provinces alone. In Ituri province in the northeast, several groups continue to kill, maim, and abduct civilians. Without concrete action, this current violence may well engulf the entire region, and the risks of such catastrophe are growing by the day.
She noted that the violence has worsened an already critical humanitarian crisis in the North and South Kivu provinces, with over 602 victims of extrajudicial executions and a staggering increase in conflict-related sexual violence. Al-Nashif highlighted the United Nations' effort to support local authorities in promoting the rule of law, transitional justice, and accountability, though insecurity has hindered progress. Despite these challenges, trials have resulted in convictions for war crimes, and the United Nations continue to provide technical and logistical assistance for transitional justice and the reform of the penal code. Al-Nashif also stressed the need for a lasting peace strategy addressing the root cause of the conflict, particularly the unlawful exploitation of natural resources and systematic corruption. Pedis Kigo, GBS News.
Gabon's junta leader, General Brice Oligui, is seeking a democratic mandate in the upcoming April 12 presidential election. He aims to transition from military ruler to elected president following his 2023 coup that ousted his cousin Ali Bongo, ending the Bongo family's long-standing rule. Nguema's campaign centers on economic reform and anti-corruption measures, appealing to a population dissolution with inequality. A recent constitutional referendum limiting presidential terms and barring hereditary succession has been approved. Critics, however, suggest that electoral code revisions favor Nguema's candidacy given his military background. He has temporarily relinquished his military role to meet eligibility requirements. 8 candidates, including former Prime Minister Elaine Claudy by Enze, have been approved by the Constitutional Court, with a runoff election scheduled if no candidate secures a majority. This election occurs amid a series of military takeovers in the region, with Nguema positioning Gabon's transition as a model for orderly democratic restoration. Niger's military junta announced the release of 50 individuals linked to a 2010 coup attempt, marking a significant move in the country's ongoing political transition. This release follows the official swearing-in of General Tiachini as Niger's president at a national conference in February, where a new charter was adopted to replace the existing constitution, initiating a 5-year transitional period.
Niger's military junta announced the release of 50 individuals linked to a 2010 coup attempt, marking a significant move in the country's ongoing political transition. This release follows the official swearing-in of General Abdulrahman Chani as Niger president at a national conference in February, where a new charter was adopted to replace the existing constitution, initiating a 5-year transitional period. The conference had recommended the release of former ministers, a diplomat, a journalist, and soldiers, many of whom had been imprisoned following the 2010 coup attempt. Additionally, members of the government ousted in the July 2023 coup, which brought Chani to power, have also been freed. Despite these releases, former President Mohamed Bazoum remains in detention, with international calls for his release continuing to mount. Since taking power 2 years ago, Niger junta has severed ties with its former colonial power, France, expelling French and American troops from the country. Furthermore, Niger has withdrawn from the Economic Community of West Africa states and instead formed the Alliance of the Sahel State with the military leaders of Burkina Faso and Mali. Paris Kigo, GBS News.
In a stunning legal blow in France, Marine Le Pen, leader of France's far-right National Rally, has been sentenced to a 5-year ban from public office due to embezzling European Union funds, potentially jeopardizing her 2027 presidential bid. Le Pen has called the ruling a nuclear bomb and vowed to appeal.
France far-right National Rally leader Marine Le Pen has been sentenced to a 5-year disqualification from public office due to embezzling European Union funds. The ruling could bar her from the 2027 presidential race. Le Pen calls the decision a nuclear bomb, claiming it was a desperate move as her party gains support.
The system has dropped a nuclear bomb. The reason it's using such a powerful weapon against us is obviously because we are about to win the election. They think that everything they have put in place hasn't worked, and so it's time to take it a step further.
She plans to appeal, but the ineligibility for office remains in place during the process. In addition to the ban, Le Pen faces 2 years of house arrest with an electronic ankle monitor. While the house arrest will begin after appeals, the disqualification stands, potentially sidelining her candidacy for the upcoming election. If the ruling stands, a deputy Jordan Bardella may take her place. With Le Pen's party gaining momentum in the polls, the stakes are high, and Bardella has criticized the ruling as a tyranny of judges, vowing to continue defending the rights of their supporters. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
Zimbabwe police said Tuesday it had arrested 95 people after a day of protest called by opponents of President Emerson. The group appeared before a court in Harare on charges on promoting public violence. Turnout of the demonstration was low, with most people staying away from the streets. A copy of the police charges accused the suspects of throwing stones and barricading a street while they gathered at Harare's Freedom Square.
Zimbabwean police arrested 95 people on Tuesday following a day of protest organized by opponents of President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The protesters who appeared in court on charges of promoting public violence were accused of throwing stones and barricading a street of Harare's Freedom Square. Despite the call for demonstration from a faction of veterans of the country's 1970s liberation war, turnout was low, with schools and business closed and most people stay away. The government and police had urged the public to ignore the protest and continue with their daily activities, while the security was heightened in the capital. The protests were organized by a faction of opposed Mnangagwa's plans to extend his rule beyond 2028, when his second term ends. The group led by Blessed Geza support Vice President Constantino Chiwenga as the successor, though Chiwenga, a former military leader who helped oust Robert Mugabe, has not commented on the term extension or the protest. Paris Kigo, GBS News.
The death toll from the recent earthquake in Myanmar has risen to nearly 3,000, with thousands more injured and hundreds still missing. As international rescue efforts intensify, humanitarian officials warn that the window for life-saving aid is closing rapidly, with many affected communities already facing critical shortages of water, food, and medical supplies.
The recent earthquake in Myanmar has caused widespread destruction, claiming nearly 3,000 lives, with thousands more injured and hundreds still unaccounted for.
As of today, almost 3,000 are dead and thousands more injured and missing. And the devastation is really alarming. Colleagues are reporting buildings turned to rubble, homes destroyed, and significant damage to roads and bridges and other infrastructure. Electricity supplies are still down in many places and phone communication is patchy at best.
The hardest hit areas including Mandalay, Sagaing and southern Shan State are experiencing severe shortages of clean water, food and medical supplies. The UN's Julia Rees, deputy representative of UNICEF in Myanmar, described the crisis as communities are left homeless, with children traumatized by the destruction and loss of family members.
What I saw was devastating. Entire communities have been flattened. Children and families are sleeping out in the open with no homes to return to. I met children who were in shock after witnessing their homes collapse or the death of a family member, and some have been separated from their parents and others are unaccounted for.
Despite efforts from international rescue teams, including units from China and India, the window for life-saving response is quickly closing and aftershocks continue to disrupt the recovery efforts.
The needs are massive and they're rising by the hour. The window for life-saving response is closing, and across the affected areas, families are facing acute shortages of clean water, food and medical supplies.
The humanitarian situation is compounded by the country's ongoing conflict since 2021 military coup, with over 1.6 million displaced people already in the affected areas. With the time running out for saving lives, UN officials are calling on international communities to provide immediate and substantial support to help the people of Myanmar recover from this double tragedy. Triza Tiengo, GBS News.
A federal judge has permanently dismissed the corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The judge's decision prevents the Department of Justice from refiling any charges. Judge Dale Ho ruled that the case should be dismissed without the possibility of being reopened. He expressed concern that leaving the charges unresolved could put pressure on Mayor Adams to align with the Trump administration's policies, particularly on immigration. The judge stated that this situation could damage public trust by creating the impression that Mayor Adams' freedom was dependent on his cooperation with the administration's priorities. Mayor Adams had faced 5 charges, including bribery and conspiracy. These charges alleged that he accepted illegal campaign contributions and luxury travel from Turkish officials in exchange for political favors. In February 2025, the Department of Justice attempted to dismiss the case, citing concerns that the prosecution was interfering with Mayor Adams' ability to govern and obtain security clearance. This decision led to resignations from career prosecutors who believed the dismissal was politically motivated. The judge's final ruling has now been closed this case, preventing any future prosecution by the Department of Justice.
My fellow New Yorkers, today finally marks the end of this chapter. I want to thank my legal team, but specifically my counsel, Alex Spiro. Now I clearly understand why those from Jay-Z to Baldwin call on him during difficult times. Alex, thank you so much for seeking and pursuing justice and obtaining justice. As you have heard, this case, the judge has dismissed it with prejudice, making it clear that it never can be brought back. Let me be clear. As I've said all along, this case should have never been brought. And I did nothing wrong. I'm now happy that our city can finally close the book on this and focus solely on the future of our great city. I want to thank New Yorkers who stood by my side, who prayed for me, who supported me from day one, and stuck with me while we focus on the work at hand. And continue to deliver for the nearly 8.5 million New Yorkers who call this city home every day. That's who I think about every morning when I wake up here. That's who I am fighting for. Each of you make this city the greatest city on the globe. I also want to apologize to New Yorkers for having to go through this with me, a baseless case that should have never been brought in the first place.
It's time for us to, it is time for our most favorite segment of the show, the sports news. Let's get sporty. Real Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti will stand trial today in Spain on charges of tax evasion. Prosecutors accuse him of defrauding 1 million euros between 2014 and 2015, seeking a prison sentence of up to 4 years and 9 months. The 65-year-old coach, renowned for winning 5 UEFA Champions League titles, denies any wrongdoing. His legal troubles now cast a shadow over his celebrated career in football.
Real Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti will stand trial in Spain today, facing charges of tax evasion. Prosecutors accuse him of defrauding the Spanish government 1 million euros between 2014 and 2015, using shell companies to hide his earnings. A court set the trial date last Friday, and prosecutors are seeking a prison sentence of up to 4 years and 9 months, but the 65-year-old Italian coach denies any wrongdoing.
I trust the law and justice. I am not worried about it. But clearly, if the prosecutors say that I have committed fraud, that makes me upset. But I truly believe in the law and justice. And I am going eagerly declare.
Coach Ancelotti is one of football's most successful coach and holds the record for the most UEFA Champions League titles won by a coach, with 5 titles, 3 with Real Madrid and 2 with AC Milan. The football world now awaits the outcome of his trial. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
Well, we have come to the end of the news bulletin. It is always a pleasure having you on board. Let's do this again, same time, same channel. We make your news our business. My name is Stephen George. Our sign language interpreter tonight has been Paul Madenge. Good night.
Everywhere, GBS.